Joining us, we have Member of Parliament for Pointe-à-Pierre and UNC Shadow Minister of Energy, Dr. David Lee. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Good evening, Mikee K, to yourself and to your listeners out there tonight.
Thank you
It's
so
a
much.
privilege in your program as always.
Yes, thank you so much, and happy emancipation to you,
Same
and
to
officially
you,
to
same
you
to you
and
and
your
your
family.
listeners out there. Happy emancipation to everybody in Trinidad and Tobago.
A lot is going on, Dr. Lee. I mean, here it is, these press conferences, and I mean, you came out first to let the country know that we have some trouble in the energy sector. After that, of course, had it not been for yourself and, of course, the opposition, the PNM government would have hidden from all of us the fact that at least four of our major downstream plants, with reports suggesting it could be seven, was shut down because the National Gas Company simply has no gas to supply them. Now, tell us exactly what are we looking at here?
Well, Mikee K, let me just, I want to thank you for your opening statement and just reiterating what happened last week. I got information that there was a shutdown on certain plants. I had information 4 plants, and it could be as much as 7, as you had mentioned. And we did I put out a release on Friday lunchtime, and then around 3 p.m. on that same Friday, the Ministry of Energy, and I'm assuming it would have been via the Minister of Energy, they put out a 2-paragraph release stating that there was some issue with gas supplying the Point Lisas Industrial Estate due to some issue that developed at one of the upstreamers, Woodside, in their production of gas. And certain things happen, Mikee K. I wonder, because Minister Young seems to, because we called them out on this issue, it appears that we are just talking about doom and gloom. But the gas sector affects every one of us in our country. And not only the downstreamers, meaning the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, the shortage of gas that we are experiencing presently. And there was a release on Sunday, on the 29th of July, that the NGC put out. I don't know if you got or if you saw that release, Mikee K.
Yeah.
So it puts out a release, and it's not only affecting the downstreamers, but they were saying, I want to quote what that release says in it. The release from NGC on the 29th of July, it states that, and I appreciate, while the implication of this disruption for downstream customers are acknowledged with deep regret, it is imperative that the necessary inspection takes place. Now, they went further to say all stakeholders are assured that NGC is working assiduously with its upstream suppliers and downstream consumers to manage the impact of this disruption. Then it goes on, which is critical here now. Discussions are also being held with the Trinidad and Tobago Electricity Commission, TNTEC, and the independent power producers to minimize the impact on the power generation sector. So what that tells me, we all know that TNTEC and the independent power producers like TGU and Trinity Power, they depend on our gas supply. That is where, to generate electricity. And they're saying because of this shortage or shortage of gas that we're experiencing, TNTEC, they're putting them on notice that there might be some impact, and they're trying to alleviate or minimize the impact that this lack of gas could have on TNTEC and the energy sector. Okay, so these are not my words. This is not David Lee or the opposition speaking doom and gloom. This is a release put out by NGC when we called out of the issue that was experiencing by the lack of gas or the shortage of gas, given what has happened to one of our upstreamers. Now, could you imagine if we did not bring out the facts, Mikee K,
right,
and the consumers, the TNT, the Trinidad and Tobago population starts to experience power outages because we don't know what is happening, all right, because of the lack of gas. We would be none the wiser, but at least now we are aware, and there's some kind of accountability and transparency by NGC in putting out this release. And this is the fact that we as an opposition has always been saying that this government is about cover-up and hiding the facts from the population. Now, Minister Young, and I will say more when I speak about Minister Young on Thursday at our Thursday point of view meeting, which is being held at OWTU Palms Club on this Thursday starting from 6:30. I will say more about Minister Young in my presentation on Thursday.
But for the citizens' sake, now, also in your release it says that in the last few days, the shutdown of these plants means that this country has lost millions in foreign exchange. In the last few days, the shutdown of these plants means that taxpayers have lost out millions in revenue. And let me ask you this, I'm put you on the spot here. Is it that there are new players in this energy game, in our local energy sector, who may not have the experience exactly how this is supposed to work, may not have the know-how? Basically what I'm asking is that these players, were they brought in based on the fact of their connections as friends, family, and financiers? And of course, how did they get in there? Did they purchase many of these contractors as far as their companies for pennies on the dollars? And are we now paying the price for this incompetence that's taking place?
Well, I mean, that's a good question that you raise, a scenario, but I think the effect that we experienced because of some situation that happened at Woodside purchased or bought out, I think, BHP, an Australian company. So they inherited that. They are now, Woodside has taken over what BHP Billington, the Australian company, would have been producing for Trinidad and Tobago. So they have the experience. But what has happened, I just want to get in, before I get into the revenue and the foreign exchange that has been lost by this country over the last few days. What has happened is that because of the lack of vision or the lack of urgency by this government over the last 7 years, Mikee K, is that because of their poor management of the energy sector, this government has not put the kind of incentives in place for the energy sector to keep drilling, keep looking and finding for natural oil and gas. So that they have not incentivized the energy sector to incentivize the energy companies to keep exploring and finding new finds of oil and gas. All right, so that they have not done that, and that is why we are at crunch, and that is why this government seems to be banking on the Dragon gas deal and not looking to incentivize our energy companies who have been here with us for years, over 100 years in this country, to continue the exploration that is required. They are not putting the mechanism in place like what happened under the Kamla predecessor regime, because what we are experiencing, whatever gas we are experiencing now, is because of the incentives and the vision that took place under Kamla predecessor between 2010 and 2015. That is what this country is living off on. And this government has not done its work to keep the flow and exploration going on in our country.
But again, you said that you want the country to remember that we were the energy kings of the Caribbean world. And we built Point Lisas because of an abundance of oil and gas. Therefore, whenever an issue arises with a gas producer, this country, like we did in the past, is supposed to have extra gas. So who are these advisors? Who are these people who are now having the ears of the administration, who are saying, listen, we don't need this, we don't need that, but at the end of it all, it's paying for each and every taxpayer out of the pocket and to have to deal with the incompetence when it comes to our revenue.
Well, it tells that this regime, this Rowley-led regime and the present Minister of Energy does not have the wherewithal, or maybe they don't understand the energy sector enough to keep the business of the energy sector going. Okay, that's our lifeblood. That is our revenue for our country. That is what we have depended on for all these years. That is why we had enjoyed a fairly comfortable standard of living, which has been eroding at a fast pace under this present government. So that to answer your question, I don't think this government who's running the people who are running the energy sector. They might be getting the right advice. From what I understand, the energy companies are calling on this government to put in the right incentives to continue the exploration for oil and gas, and this government seems to be not interested in doing that, because if you look at all the different bid rounds that would have happened in the past underneath Franklin Can and underneath Minister Young, it has not been successful. It has not borne the fruits. There have been no takers. So it really has been a failure on the exploration side based on what the incentives that this government has offered the energy company.
Right. But bear in mind, what you're telling us does not reflect how it is we are being sold on the global market. Because the same Minister Young said on CNN that we would be ramping up production to help Europe. And of course, today you're telling us about these problems that we're facing. He also said to the BBC Question Time and to the world that thank God we have an oil and gas economy, but yet still we are not benefiting from it. We're seeing what's happening and it's in a shamble, compounded with the fact that Dr. Keith Rowley, the Prime Minister, has been appointed as the chair of the U.S. CARICOM Energy Security Committee. But again, it doesn't reflect the reality that you are telling us and what we're hearing and what is coming out from our energy sector.
Well, Mikee K, to answer those questions, those points, that statement you just put across there, I am not telling any untruths. I am telling the facts. This is what is out there presently. The NGC has corroborated my statement that there is a shortage. There's a shortage of gas. Minister Young has come out, and you know what the curious thing about this is that they don't know. They're hoping that the ending of this week there might be some normalcy back into the flow of gas, right? Now, when you shut down 4 plants and maybe up to 7, these plants take a while to start back up. You cannot just turn on a switch and say the plant will be up for production the next day once they get gas supply. It takes a while for these plants to ramp back up the kind of production. So it will take a few more weeks before they can get back. If it does happen that the gas is corrected and the shortfall and the flow starts to happen back in the Point Lisas Industrial Estate, it takes another few days or maybe a couple weeks before the plants can start back up production. And what has been happening is that we have been losing those companies' reputation, because Mikee K, they would have cargoes. Their production would have been already purchased or promised on the international markets, and they have now have to curtail their production, and it is jeopardizing their reputation on the international market, and it also affects the revenue, our foreign exchange situation that we would have been earning, this country would have been earning from the sale of these cargoes. So it's a whole domino effect that would take place, and it's not as simple as what Minister Young is trying to give this country. It's not just turning on a switch and the plants will go back to production. It does not like that.
Okay, let me ask you. Let's look at Naquan. I mean, the Prime Minister Rowley said so much about Naquan. I mean, it was the potential of Naquan, everything that was expected about Naquan. He even made reference to the WGTL, which was the gas to liquid, of course, project that was a total failure that cost us, the taxpayers, each one of us, so much money. In fact, that we were simply were providing what we already had. But now we were stuck with infrastructure, we were stuck with all these bills and all these responsibilities. Naquan, very important questions. How much taxes has Naquan paid? How much jobs has Naquan created? And of course, how much foreign exchange has Naquan generated? Have we gotten anything out of Naquan that we can say that can be used to better or elevate the lives of the citizenry? Can you tell us?
Well, I will say 0, 0, 0. Okay, and I will go even further. When Naquan was given this peppercorn plant at peppercorn prices by this present government in our prime property of Petrotrin compound, and that was the old WGTL that was the brainchild of Malcolm Jones, and that's another story for another day to rehash. Mikee K. Now, Nike plant, it was touted to be a great success for this country when it was opened back in March 2021 by Prime Minister Rowley. What happened about a month after in 2021, in April, they had a major blast at Nike plant. Now, things happen, but you see the issue there for me as a member of Parliament point of view. That blast affected my community of Marabella, Batu Avenue, especially Marabella West, the people of Marabella West, the people of Batu Avenue, the people of Marabella East, and going further north, Pleasant Park, Paxton Bay. And I have called on numerous occasions via Parliament when we'll be getting that report of what caused that blast back in 2021. We have not heard a word. Minister Young has been hiding behind saying that the Nikon is a private company, but at the end of the day, Nikon sits on our property, our taxpayers, your property, Mikee K, your listeners' property of Petrotrin, what was Petrotrin before as we know it, and they owe us not only from a safety point of view, they owe the community an answer because we don't know if this could happen and repeat again. And what we saw again in another disaster where we lost a life, Mr. Ramkisoon, if my memory is correct,
Yes.
Alani,
Ramkisoon.
right? He was doing subcontracting work on the Nikon plant. I mean, he condolences to his family. He lost his life. Again, we don't know what is taking place on that Nikon plant. And from a safety point of view, we don't know at the MP4 point of view if that Nikon plant is safe to operate, and that is the question I have been asking consistently throughout since this Nikon plant has restarted. Now, further to that, how this affects taxpayers? Taxpayers, Nikon part of the sweetheart deal, they get a peppercorn natural supply of gas that is sent to Nikon from the minister's share of natural gas. That was a question we asked in Parliament. The late Franklin can answer that it is part of the minister's share of natural gas. But what we see happening here, and the record will show up, that Nikon is owning a company called Trinidad Upstream Downstream Limited that was solely set up for Nikon from this government to supply them with gas. So this country has supplied Nikon with natural gas, and they are owing this company, you the taxpayers that we own, for the price of this natural gas that we have supplied to Nikon. So Nikon, and the other part of it, Mikee K, Nikon was given a sweetheart deal by this company called Take or Pay. What that means is that every product that they produce at that Nikon plant, that Paria company will purchase everything, right? So there's a sweetheart deal that they have a ready market to be purchased by Paria. And we have yet, as a country, to see any taxes being paid by Nikon on behalf of whatever they have produced. And they have not been producing what they said they would produce, even to their financiers. So even from a financial point of view, Nikon is a lot of...
Well, I need to ask you this. I mean, without, of course, going too deep, who is Nikon benefiting? Who's benefiting from Nikon? Because if there's no such data as far as how many jobs were created, if we can't say that, you have young people from different walks of life, from different communities who are down there, are being shuttled, are being worked, is part of an apprenticeship program, you can't say how much money Nikon is bringing in, so definitely doesn't benefit us. Then it has to be benefiting someone. And if not in the long term, as far as setting up the infrastructure and everything, who is Nikon benefiting?
Well, Nikon is benefiting, the friends and families of this present government, because they gave them a sweetheart deal. If you look at some of the players on Nikon board and management, are some of the same players that is part of this present regime. All right, I call no names at this point in time, but if you look at the players are all familiar to the PNM, and as far as jobs are concerned, Mikee K, I'm yet to find somebody employed at Nikon plant that is part of my constituency of Point of View. So that I mean, you have some very pertinent questions as far as the employment aspect or the training aspect. It's a best kept secret that is going on at Nikon. And Nikon sits on our crown jewel called the Petrotrin refinery / compound, Mikee K. Yes. And that is our lifeblood.
Well, basically, Dr. Lee, it's a lemon. It's an energy lemon. I mean, first of all, you don't know if it's safe to even operate. If the people who are living in the environs there where it's situated, if it's even safe for them to be there. On top of that, it's not creating jobs. It's not benefiting the people of the country who are the main stakeholders in everything. So we are stuck with an energy lemon. But somebody has to be benefiting. Someone has to be benefiting. I mean, I don't believe that a board is going to be created with investors and there are people who are actually going to put in money and who will not be expecting to get something on their returns. So is this a matter of friends, family, and finances?
Let's look at this way, Mikee K. Nikon is set up. They would have had to borrow millions of dollars, and they're in US, and it's over 100. They owe him plenty money. That's billions, right? Now, when you set up the plant, they would have had to hire contractors. Right. One has to ask who those contractors. So at the end of the day, Mikee K, if that Nikon plant at the end of the day, to cut a long story short, is not successful, you know who will be caught holding the lemon, as you say? The financiers, which would be the banks, who would have funded this project. All right? They would be, and then those banks would have had shareholders, they would have, and so it's a whole domino effect, Mikee K. But at the end of the day, if the Nikon plant is not successful financially, the people, the banks that would have funded this project would be caught holding the end of the stick. All right? I don't want to use any derogatory words, but, and then you have to ask, what was the security utilized for them to get this funding? Was it the WGTL plant? That is, if it's not successful, I mean, so it's a whole issue that a whole can of worms that is being opened up if this Nikon plant is not successful. At the end of the day, it will be the banks and the finance companies will be holding the lemon, as you say.
As you say. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for taking time out to link with us this evening. It has definitely been interesting, very insightful. And again, thank you. And best of luck to you and your entire team. I know the meeting is sometime on Thursday. Tell us again the address.
It's on Thursday in the OWTU Palms Club on Point of View Road in San Fernando. We start at 6:30. It will be a bumper crowd of speakers. The feature, as always, would be the Honorable Kamala Prasad, Decessor. And I ask all listeners to come down to OWTU. And I just, before you want to end, Mikee K, before I leave, I want to compliment the Point of View, the OWTU Point of View branch, for taking that brave step in coming out and against this government and supporting all candidates other than the PNM candidates. Because what the Point of View branch is saying, they have been taken for a fool too long by this Rowley-led government. And they are saying enough is enough. And they are coming out in support of all candidates other than the PNM candidates.
All right. Thank you so much again. Keep up the good work. Best of luck to you and your team.
Thank you. Thank you.